All right, we are live for the Friday edition of the Mike and Mario Show. Excited to be back. Looking forward to connecting. A lot of things worth touching on, but more importantly, Mario, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, and you, Mike?
I am excellent. I am excellent. Excited to connect with you as always. And man, what a heck of a week of events that have unfolded since we last connected. So we ended up last week talking a little about the whole Evergrande situation. More information came out since then. And then we have the Bitcoin FUD today. We got the Arizona audit today. We have Federal Reserve meeting yesterday. Wednesday. So a lot of other stuff, man. And so, of course, a lot of things developing in the UK region. And so, man, let's kick this thing off. So where do you want to start at today, my friend?
Just going to answer a question here by Angie. She asked about the hyperinflationary crack-up boom,
Yeah.
and that it leads to authoritarianism, and why. And this is happening. I think we're getting the crack-up boom.
Mhm.
We're seeing symptoms of it here in the UK. We have shortages of everything. I think the supply chain, the outsourcing model is breaking down. And I think COVID last year was the trigger for the breakdown, not just in the UK, but everywhere else. And the reason why hyperinflation leads to authoritarianism is because the government or the state that issues the currency is losing control of
Yeah.
the currency. And usually it's because they have too much debt. So they have to crack down on dissent. They have to crack down on people trying to protect themselves from the currency that is collapsing. Case in point, cryptocurrencies. We're seeing the Chinese coming out again and saying they're going to make it all illegal. We're
Yeah.
seeing the SEC being tough on the cryptos. Well, that's authoritarianism. We're seeing all the restrictions they're putting on us, even though they say it's because of a health situation. But you look at Australian, what they're doing there. Yes, I think it's because the more they lose control of the economy, of the money, they can't let you be free. So, and the reason why I've been pointing that out is because that's what happened in France in the 1790s during the French Revolution.
Yeah.
It was the reign of terror, and they put even death sentence for people who dealt in anything but the assignats, which was the paper money then. And yeah, that's why, basically.
Yeah, good analysis there, man. So but they'll do anything possible to continue to control the narrative, to execute their agenda of what they told us they want to do, which is to use these events as the catalyst for the Great Reset. So nothing will make sense. Everything will be turned upside down. The fact that the economy has been so unsteady, but yet we're being lied to by every single politician around the world as they push this agenda. And then on another note, have you seen all those videos popping up of how all the celebrities and politicians, when they walk in buildings, they have their mask off. And then when it's time the cameras go on, they all put their mask on. So just stuff like that shows that this is all one big orchestrated event, man. So nothing really makes sense. And then speaking of hyperinflation, I want to bring that article up real quick. And so this is a major concern amongst a lot of UBS clients. And so it says hyperinflation tops the list of fears for the UBS clients. And so if you look at these graphs here, it shows why a lot of people are concerned, because we're at all-time highs. U.S. sovereign risk way up here. We have public debt close to 30 trillion with the debt ceiling looming. Then we have the Federal Reserve balance sheet, which you say as of today is 8.5, you say, Mario?
Just underneath it, but you can
Just
round
underneath
it
it?
up, 8.5 trillion, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was one of the many questions to where, the person who asked that question, you're not alone. A lot of people right now are concerned with the instability of this global economy as we're all witnessing. Wow, where'd I go? Man, clicking the wrong buttons. But anyway, let's keep it moving, man. But let's move to what's happening in UK, Mario. So supply chain issues, gas, fuel shortages, panic buying, all types of articles coming out. But is that what you're experiencing, or that's what we're being told?
I mean, everything's fine when, at least for me. But I think today we've had people that have gone out to the petrol stations, or gas stations, as you call it,
Yeah.
and they've queued up because they're seeing the headlines. The only thing I've seen, I went last week to a supermarket, and the part where they sell frozen vegetables and stuff was
Yeah.
fairly empty. But I've been looking at the situation since the beginning of September,
Hmm.
natural gas prices and then electricity prices. And we still have it because uh, there's no shortage. But what's happening is that the price of electricity is going through the roof.
Yeah.
Uh, we have a lot of electricity providers in the UK or power providers.
Hmm.
And for example, my wife told me that one of her friends got a deal to get gas and electricity for £80 a month,
Hmm.
which is really low. I think we have a normal provider, British Gas or Centrica, they call it,
Hmm.
and we pay about 160, 180.
Hmm.
And then now though, she was surprised, this friend, that they raised it to like 160, but now her company has gone bust. So another big company's had to take over that company. I think we've had 7 of these companies go bust, and natural gas prices keep rising. Uh, the carbon emission prices keep rising.
Uh-huh.
And the other excuse is that we've got not enough wind, and 25% of the electricity is dependent on wind power. But I would say the problem is everywhere in the West and even in other countries.
Yeah.
We've become too dependent on supply chain, on big companies having just-in-time inventories,
Mhm.
outsourcing everything, and I think it's a symptom of the fiat currency system,
Yeah.
where government gets bigger, the debt servicing gets bigger, and companies. Uh, and it destroys the smaller companies
Hmm.
because only big companies get the financing.
Correct.
So they get bigger and bigger, but they have somehow they they have to keep saving money to keep going, and then you have a little problem like COVID, and everything breaks down.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening in the UK. We've been too far financialized. So yes, there were problems um, because of the lockdown. And in July, I was saying that the uncertainty that the lockdown and this crisis gives people and small businesses is going to weigh on the economy.
Hmm.
And then now, in the last few weeks, we've seen problems in electricity, utility bills. We're also seeing taxes increase. They announced an increase in the national insurance tax. That's going to come in April. And we're seeing inflation go up as well.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing that truck drivers, there's a shortage.
Hmm.
And actually, I saw a comment a few weeks ago in one of my videos from a truck driver, or they call it here lorry drivers.
Hmm.
But and he was in the States, and he said, I'm a truck driver and there aren't shortages of us. It's just that we don't want to work for the money they pay us and the conditions. And that's the same thing here, I think.
Yeah.
And some people are saying that it's because of Brexit. A lot of the Eastern European truck drivers have gone back home. That's partly the case, but I think what the powers that be didn't realize with this lockdown that they put us under last year, and the unusual situation that we're in, people have started to look at things differently, and they're
Hmm.
asking themselves, should I really be doing this for such little money? And I think uh, I think the real problem is that people have been gotten underpaid for too long, and
Yeah.
they're saying, I'm just going to sit back and wait and see, and it's creating loads of problems. We the energy problem as well. I think it made a few fertilizer plants shut down in the UK, like 40% of the fertilizers. And yes, that will affect crops and everything. But I didn't know this, and we're all learning this because these things are happening. One of the byproducts of uh, the fertilizers is something to do with ammonia and carbon dioxide,
Hmm.
and they sell that carbon dioxide to food companies because all the packaging has to be pressure packed, and they
Yeah.
use that carbon dioxide. So the government now has had to give an emergency loan for this big private company
Hmm.
that produces fertilizers, an American company. because people were concerned that we'd have no food in the supermarkets, because they pack everything nowadays, because everything has to be transported. And you see, in the old days, maybe 40, 50 years ago, you didn't have the big supermarkets. You had
Small mom and pops.
mom and pop. They'd have a supermarket in Omaha, Nebraska, or somewhere in London, and there wouldn't be any other of that supermarket anywhere else. It was just mom and pop. But
Yeah.
now everything is so huge.
Yeah.
I went to Asda the other day, which is used to be owned by Walmart, is a supermarket in the UK. They just sold it to these brothers here in the UK, the Issa brothers. They started out with one gas station 20 years ago, and now they're multi-billionaires. And
Yeah.
they bought Asda for $6 billion. I went to Asda the other day, and I went to the bakery section to ask it, have you got such and such a bread? And actually, the baker came out, and I said, and he said, no, we don't have any of that here. And I asked, so are you going to make some later on? And he said, we don't make bread here anymore. And I said, how come you got all these ovens? He said, well, they just decided to close down the bakery here, and they're going to do it from one place and ship everything in. So that's going to make it worse.
Yeah. You know what? And with that,
so that's what's happening in the UK.
Yeah. So everything that you've described, all the chaos is unfolding, is due to the fact that everything has been monopolized to the hands of a small few that control everything, the in and out of every market, with all the big conglomerates now, to where if anything goes wrong with them, or I'd imagine a lot of those companies you're referring to, their higher ups are probably associated with the World Economic Forum, the whole partnership program, and then they're deliberately withholding, cutting back on things, trying to create this sense of scarcity and supply chain issues. But it's a part of their strategic plans, in my opinion. Here's a super chat from Miles. Thank you. Says, isn't China more likely to let Evergrande, and the three other fail and then nationalize them? Send half to Mario for a solar generator or a small wind turbine.
Well, do you want me to? I'll answer half the question.
Good.
Well, I think Evergrande could. I think parts of Evergrande could go under, and what would happen? I think the Chinese economy is very nationalized anyway. I think a lot of the private companies have loans from state-owned banks.
Yeah.
So I think what will happen to Evergrande is that a lot of the properties they have, they will be, given to other companies to, how can I say, manage. The debt is going to be swapped for equity in state banks. Yeah, they will sort something out. But I think the Chinese government doesn't really want to be too involved in business because they've learned from this old Soviet Union that you can't centrally plan things too much. And what will happen is that yes, there are state banks in China and everything. They will just go to other owners. And I think I read as well that the major shareholders anyway of Evergrande is the founder and his wife, but that they've taken about $5 billion in dividends in the last few years. So if they get wiped out, their equity gets wiped out, it's not a big deal because they're still multi-billionaires. So the problem with Evergrande is that it could spill over into the bond market, not just in Asia, the junk bond market, but also in the US, UK, Europe. We could have a domino effect. I think we need to keep an eye on it.
Right. I agree. And I think it's still the contagion side of things is still in play, regardless of what the Chinese PBOC decide to do with it, because it's all them dollars that have come in as far as investment. So I think BlackRock and UBS and a lot of other companies put millions into into that corporation as well. So what's going to happen to them? And so I think a lot of those big banks, they can afford to write that stuff off. But, you got all the other institutions that probably are along with that. They can't afford that. So we'll see. And then also I think out of Switzerland, some institutions in Switzerland decided to dump Evergrande stock or whatnot. So that's going to be another thing to keep an eye on. So yeah, the dominoes are definitely falling. But I think one thing that a lot of people mention is the definition of a black swan. And so somebody threw out a question to me earlier this week: is China's event the black swan? And then I end up looking at the definition of black swan, and it says an unexpected event. And the fact that we're able to look at China and see all this stuff unfolding, that's not, we're expecting that to happen. So there still lies something out there, possibly, that could come out of the blue, perhaps, and be the true event that causes all that China, as well as the debt ceiling stuff here, to really come to a day of reckoning. So what are your thoughts on the debt ceiling stalemate that appears to be happening right now, as I guess Biden comes out, mentioned that some government agencies needs to brace for a shutdown again, but this time they're shutting down at the same time the entire world is having issues. So this is somewhat different. How you think that's going to impact things going forward?
I saw a tweet from someone that used to work at ABN AMRO with me, but he's in Chicago, and he said, "Don't be fooled. Government shutdown is going to be only 2% of federal workers are going to be out of work, but they're going to get paid. So it's not like, oh, the government's collapsed, even though that probably would be a good thing for the federal government to collapse. But
I think those employees that you're referring to are probably the national park workers and like people who work at the museum, stuff like that. That 2% of people.
Yeah, but I think what's happening now is like, from what I see, and it's quite complicated. The Democrats could get things through, but they want to do it with the Republicans. So in case there's a huge fiscal financial problem, they can say, "Oh, we're all in this together."
Yeah.
So it's tricky. I don't know. All I know is that the more complicated and difficult they make it seem, the more confidence people will lose, faith and confidence, foreign investors especially, and even domestic investors will lose in the US Treasury and the Congress and how the currency is run. And to me, it's just like, why would you want a currency that's dependent on the whims of these corrupt politicians? Why not have something that's solid, that's had value for thousands of years? But eventually something will get sorted out. But in 2011, there was brinksmanship. It came to the last minute, and they were able to sort it out. But who knows? It could be serious.
It's definitely
People
don't expect
it to be serious, but it could be the black swan.
It could, as a whole,
could be the black swan. Yeah.
Now, what's also unique is the fact that not only are they up against the whole debt ceiling debate as if it's actually like a ceiling, because they just keep lifting the damn thing up, and then you have the budget plan, that 3.5 trillion that's a part of the Build Back Better agenda, which is a lot of the back and forth that they're saying we're not going to support that, do it by yourself. And then you got the infrastructure plan as well. So that's 1 trillion, 3.5 trillion, and then a ceiling. And so that all of that right there equals something that I don't think our country's ever had to deal with all at one time within a supposedly 2-week or so window. So that right there to me spells extreme difficulty, because how do you iron that out? So it's going to be one party against the other. So we're going to witness all that political theater happening in real time, because I don't think they're going to get exactly what they want, but we'll see. And then also on another note, with all that China stuff that came out today, as we were talking before, we went on, which is I think the 5th or 6th time China said they banned it or made it illegal.
Oh, cryptos,
It happens to be on the same day that we're being informed about it on the national scale as the Arizona audit situation, which takes place officially in about 30 minutes from now, give or take. And so I just thought that'd be very interesting that the China FUD comes out to distract us while the Arizona audit situation is supposed to kick off with some very interesting details. And that's just a matter of whether or not it reveals, the criminality behind the whole past election or not. But yet I just think it's definitely not by coincidence to have all that come out, man.
Yes, I was reading something on Bloomberg about, and they call everything a conspiracy theory. So even this election audit in Arizona. So there's a different points of view. I'm not saying I think it's a conspiracy theory, but it definitely could be something interesting.
Yeah. And also on another note, the continuous information that's not being talked about when it comes to the whole reverse repo situation. So here's an article from Mish Talk about the reverse repo and how they actually, increased the counterparties available and added some additional liquidity for usage. And so, what I'm curious to find out how all this unfolds, because I can't grasp the entirety of it and understand what's going on, other than the fact they're continually, just draining liquidity out of the system, unraveling all the prior QE that was put in to save the economy. Is that their way of trying to, prolong some things, you think? Because if they have more than enough liquidity available, but they're withdrawing it, what was the point in really putting it out there initially? Did they put too much out there, or what are your opinions, man?
I think this has got to do with I think it was the end of March this year.
Mm-hmm.
There was a rule because they had suspended this rule last year because of the crisis, that banks had a buffer of how much assets they could have, or
Mm-hmm.
cash.
Yeah.
And so that expired in March. So they had to find a way for the banks to keep that cash off their balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So they're putting it with the Fed. So the Fed sells, securities, and all those counterparties gives the Fed cash. But yeah, it is a sign there's too much cash in the system. If they weren't doing these reverse repos, if you read Mish's piece there, short-term rates would be negative in the U.S., and that could be really negative for the U.S. dollar, because the U.S. dollar is the major reserve currency, and it would cause problems for the dollar, I think.
So
but
those are
he's also saying
the real rates he's referring to, not the actual the nominal. I mean, I'm sorry, that's the nominal, not the real.
No, short-term rates,
Correct.
like 1 week T-bills,
Yeah.
1 month T-bills.
Yeah.
He's saying that if they weren't doing these reverse repos, this all this liquidity would drive short-term rates into negative territory.
Yeah.
And why would foreigners want to keep that could
Negative.
discourage a lot of people from keeping money parked in dollars.
Yeah. Very interesting times, man. This doesn't really add up, but it is what it is. Miles says, why is the media turning on Biden and Harris all of a sudden? That's a good question. That is a good question. I think it adds to more of that, good guy, bad guy, that mindset of trying to keep us distracted, because I really believe it helps them out to always have something for us to focus on that promotes more division amongst the populace. And so a lot of people, we got college students all across the country in football games yelling, F Joe Biden. So you have a lot of the younger crowd showing their displeasure in him. And it really makes people wonder who actually voted for him. Like, or if the people really did vote for him, have they changed their minds since then? So I just find it to be very laughable, because the mainstream media is pumping out so much garbage now. It's hard to decipher what's even true, if there is anything true out there. So
maybe it's because they're not getting enough viewers, and they need to create a little bit.
That is very true. They are definitely suffering, because most people are turning to alternative media, and then especially with the whole Project Veritas on their second, they released their second edition. The first one to me was more detailed and more professionally done, in a sense, because those actual doctors, whereas in the second version was just a worker from the FDA who was just a very interesting gentleman in himself. But also, as a result of that, a congressman in Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken, put out some official announcement following up to that, which was very beneficial and favorable. Let me see if I can grab it real quick. But it was interesting that people are paying attention. And as you mentioned, as I mentioned, trying to share it on my Facebook, Facebook decided to not allow that information.
I saw both of those videos, and I shared the first one where they were speaking to doctors, and
Yeah.
I put it on Facebook, and Facebook said, "Oh, we've blocked it from everyone else seeing it. You can see it, but we consider it misinformation, and we consider that it could be harmful to other people."
Oh,
And I
really?
thought, uh,
Yeah, here's it's from projectveritas.com, but it says Congressman Paul Gosar drafts letter to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services following the Project Veritas investigation. And so he's basically laid out a couple of things that he's looking for. Basically, just report the actual data, like find ways to report the actual data
yeah,
and terminate employees and contractors who have deliberately jeopardized public health. So that's interesting to see that, it's getting the attention of a lot of politicians, even though they clearly know what's going on. But
mm,
hopefully this type of stuff furthers the pushback against this nonsense that we've been fed by all these damn lies, man. But yet the big tech companies are all working together to make sure they push this agenda. And then that's also, we're talking about how the FDA, the main doctor, decided to override the panel that was 18-2 of not promoting the boosters, but looks like they're going to push it anyway because they obviously want to make sure they get those boosters in arms for whatever reason. And they say it's for protecting against the
yeah.
unvaxxed.
I see here that it's the boss of the CDC has overruled the panel, and I remember it came out last Friday. I think we were talking about it, and I said, "Well, the boss there can easily overrule it." So this was the science saying you shouldn't do this. So it's a political decision, I would say,
Yeah.
from the CDC boss, and I think it says here now Biden touts Pfizer boosters after CDC boss overrules panel. So that's the headline I see here on Bloomberg. So
And then speaking of which, I want to, so I did a video earlier this week about how really important it is to not pay attention as much to the actual price rather than just the importance of possession, because we're reaching so much turbulence right now that at any minute something can break. And you want to make sure you are protected in the form of having some of your wealth preserved and restored. But I can't help but seeing these opening and close, these gyrations in the price in very short, small increments. But it always as a result of some type of news that hits the mainstream, I'd assume. But this stuff right here is just it's becoming very entertaining because it's comical, man. Because the
yeah,
supply
and the
side,
thing is, if you look at the time there,
yeah,
it's 6 a.m. Eastern to 10 a.m.
yeah,
Prior to that, and I've been following gold and silver for almost 20 years. And I have to say, if gold and silver only traded in New York
hmm,
during New York hours,
yeah,
because people need to understand that gold and silver is traded all around the world 24/7. But the 20 years that I've been looking, it's almost always the same. The US, bankers start coming into the office
hmm,
and gold and silver drop. It's like they need to make gold and silver be out of the headlines before the stock market opens, before the bond markets open.
yeah.
And I think the price of gold would still be at $600 if it didn't trade uh, in other
Another
places
rate, yeah,
outside the United States. And it's
yeah,
just crazy that it just seems to happen every day. But it's encouraging there if you put that chart back,
yeah,
that gold is actually picked back up.
yeah,
Because I thought they wanted to really smash it, seeing that it's a Friday.
hmm,
But gold is actually up now $10 for me on my
yeah,
system.
yeah,
Silver's down a little bit, but it seems to be holding that 22 level. But I was telling you that I bought some silver ounces
hmm,
last Saturday, and
yeah,
I just received it today in the post.
yeah,
So if the market is so weak and people are selling, how come it takes so long for me to get it? Well, I contacted the lady at where I bought the coins from,
hmm,
and I said, "Are you busy?" And she said, "Yes." So, are you seeing more sellers or buyers? And she said, "Oh, we're really busy, but
hmm,
it's all buying." All
yeah,
buying, she said,
yeah,
absolutely buying, and the price keeps going down. That price, I just tell people, yeah, you have to be patient.
hmm,
It's not a trade.
yeah,
If you want to trade gold and silver, do the futures or ETFs. That's completely different. But if you want to have it as insurance, you have to just buy it and put it away and
Yeah.
forget about it.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that earlier. The Hugo Salinas Price, his recommendation on just all this stuff is basically just to confuse you, have you looking this way, have you thinking that way, and to deter you from wanting to continue to add it to your possession just because it never moves. It's just the price is always manipulated down. So it is very interesting, man. But once again, at the end of the day, I think for those who possess it will be very happy because ultimately you're actually you're getting back into you're redeeming paper and digits back into real money.
Yeah.
So you can't go wrong holding something real.
I think is the last piece of the puzzle for the collapse of the whole thing because there's so much debate now about inflation, whether it's transitory, whether the central banks need to raise rates again or taper. Uh, and there's still like the Bank of England, they met yesterday, and
Mhm.
now people are saying they might have to raise rates. But with furlough ending in the end of September and the economy maybe being still weak, they might not have to. But if you get gold and silver going up,
Mhm.
all that thing about, oh, the economy is not weak, we don't have to raise rates, that goes out the window. And the other thing I would say, if they start raising rates, it's going to be even more not inflationary, but
Mhm.
it's going to cause prices to go up even more
Mhm.
because everyone uh, companies, consumers, they have debt. So if the cost of debt goes up,
Mhm.
prices are going to go up as well.
Yeah.
And the cost of living. So the central bankers are in a really tough position, I
Yeah.
would say, because they're damned if they do
Damn if they
raise
don't.
rates and damned if they don't.
Yeah, here's a love offer from Chris. Appreciate you. Says when the U.S. dollar falls precipitously below 70, will the Fed have no choice but to raise rates to save it? How high will it be? Will this be an overall positive for gold? Thank you. U.S. dollar falls precipitously below 70.
Yeah,
I
I can. Yeah,
I was
I think.
you go ahead.
No, sorry. I think Chris is talking about the dollar index,
Index,
and
yeah,
yeah, that was the low in 2008, 70.68. I don't think the Fed will raise rates because if we get to that point, it means that they don't really care. I
Mhm.
think eventually we will make a new low in the dollar index,
Yeah,
maybe around 60 or I don't know, 62. But I think it's going to be in the next 2 to 3 years.
yeah,
And yeah, the thing about gold, Chris, that the dollar index hit 70, 68, 69, if I believe, in March 2008, when
yeah.
the day that Bear Stearns had to be taken over. And that day, gold made an all-time high at the time of 1,031. So the dollar index since then has gone all the way up to over 100. I don't know where we're now, around
I'm
92 or
trying to
3.
put it up on the screen now.
And despite that, yeah, 93. But despite the dollar index having gone from 70 to 93, gold's gone from 1,031 to like 1,750. So yes, if we drop below 70, it's gonna put gold and silver on steroids because
Yeah,
gold and silver have gone up since '08, despite the fact that the dollar's gone up over the long term. And that's what people don't realize, how bullish this long-term bull market for gold and silver are, because
yeah,
when the dollar drops below that 70 level,
yeah.
well, gold and silver are going to be like off to the races.
Yeah. Now, I would assume one thing that's definitely different than the '08 situation when it was about 68 was that there was no alternatives such as the blockchain space and Bitcoin. So I think, and of course, everything is going to go up, but yet I would imagine, Bitcoin might go a lot further, a lot faster.
Oh yeah, that's.
So anyway, you definitely don't want to be holding the bag of Federal Reserve liabilities at that point. So,
And
uh,
I wouldn't be holding the currencies that make up the dollar index
yeah,
basket either, because
yeah.
they're all fiat currencies. They're gonna go up versus the dollar, but
Mhm.
they're not gonna go up as quickly as gold and silver.
Yeah. Very true. So, and that's why, like, when it comes to just the Dixie and the measurement of all those currencies, they're all ultimately being used as weapons against the people, and they're all heading down. So, I don't never pay too much attention to it, just because that's another gimmick similar to the CPI numbers that they use to try to tell
Yeah,
us everything is maintained, and all these different metrics that they've set up to give us valuations, and we're witnessing that the dollar doesn't purchase as much, regardless of what they tell us. So it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
nor does the euro, the pound, the yen. I think they set up the dollar index in 1973 at
uh-huh.
100. So here we are, almost 50 years later, and
50
it's
years
still
later,
around 100. But gold has gone from around 80 or $100 to 1,700. So
yeah.
you'd be much better off being in gold than.
Hands down. And then also on another note, I can't help but look at the crypto chart just because as a result of that FUD out of China, which for the sixth time, I noticed Bitcoin did not take as much of a dip as it did in prior years. So the volatility with that overall, when it comes to hearing so-called bad news, is nowhere near as bad as it used to be because the markets aren't responding that way. People are not dumping the way that they probably would have years ago, just because more institutions are on the hold now. So, but for it to come out with all that so-called news about it being illegal to transact, they didn't say anything about actually holding it. They just say you can't transact. They're shutting down exchanges. But 42,000 is not too bad, given the fact 11 years ago it was about 10 cents. You know what I'm saying? 25 cents. So overall, you're still doing well if you got in a lot sooner. So,
And I've followed Bitcoin cryptos since 2012 or 13, and I think it
yeah,
was 2017 or before. We've seen the Chinese government or the central bank there come out many times
yeah,
and threaten cryptocurrencies, and doesn't it makes a little dent in the short term,
yeah.
but in the long term, it's still moving.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like just looking at
Moving
this,
higher.
just looking at the breakdown of this chart here, since its inception, way back here, goes back to 2013. So it was, what was it? Let me see, it's $112 on May 4th, 2013, and for it to be 42,000 right now, you didn't do too bad if you happen to have
Yeah.
bought your little son back here. And so this is another little measurement showing the depreciation of fiat currencies because people are running from their national currencies in hopes of something else. And so, of course, a lot of
Yeah,
speculation.
I think that I read as well that maybe the Chinese are worried because with what's happening with Evergrande and the real estate
Mm,
market, their investors,
yeah,
they're concerned that people are gonna try to get capital
out.
outside of China, and they
Yeah,
can do that through the cryptos. So it
yeah,
could be because of that as well.
right. But we will see, man. Well, Mario, man, let's get ready to dial back. It's always good to connect, cover a lot of topics, whatever. So let me see, just based upon let me see, we got, so the debt ceiling is going to be the primary topic from here on out until something's resolved. And of course, the supply chain that they're going to try to throw at us.
Yeah,
So it's going to be a lot of stuff that's worth touching on, man. But also another subject I didn't get to was the legislation that was put forth on July 28th for the digital dollar. And so it looks like there's some talk about making an amendment to. Let me see if I can find an article real quick. Making an
it's a
amendment
bill.
to.
It's a bill that was presented in Congress, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
not law yet, but it's giving the Federal Reserve the power actually to issue
Mm-hmm.
the digital dollar, because now the Federal Reserve actually doesn't issue the currency.
Right.
It's the commercial banks that issue the currency when they give you out a loan, and then they ask the Fed to go to the Bureau of Engraving
Yeah.
and print those notes that says Federal Reserve note. But unless the commercial banks issue the loans and put the balance in your bank account, uh, there wouldn't be any currency around. But now they want this bill that was presented to the House. They
Yeah.
want to allow the Federal Reserve to do it directly to consumers. I'm not sure how easily they'd get that through. I think Jay Powell was asked that months ago when they're talking about cryptos, and he said,
Yeah.
"Well, legally, we can't issue
Right.
digital currency. That would have to change." And I think that's to do with the question that he asked then, and this congressman, I forgot his name, he's
Bear
presented
buyer.
that.
Yeah.
buyer. Yeah.
But what was interesting is that he's always talked about, we need to study and make sure it's something that, is even needed, as like, okay, we know that this is what's coming. This is where we're heading. This is where you guys need to take it. But it was always just a matter of at what point will they look to make that amendment to the Federal Reserve Act. And just with that framework that's been laid, that's something to work with now. As more pain unravels, more devastation in the economy, it'll be easier to bring it to the forefront and then have it pushed forward with no problem, because by that time, because of the lack of unemployment, labor shortages, the moratorium, stuff that's going to still continue to unravel, there'll be enough pain amongst the public to where it'd be a no-brainer to do that bill, as well as to leave an AOC's, monthly payment booster. I think it's a Booster Act, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot of acts already laid out there. And that's going to be their way of getting involved, saying we need to provide direct payments to the people because things are just so bad. Like, to me,
is that a booster jab every day, or
no? It's the Booster Act is their version of, I think it was $2,000 a month. It's their UBI.
Oh, okay,
basically what I was talking about.
But I think they'll make it conditional that you have to have a booster.
That's going to be a part of the plan too. So it's quite easy to navigate ahead and just, it's so obvious as to what they're going to try to do. And so the question is how to stay ahead of the curve, how to prevent it, push back, resist, do as much as we can. And it has to do with more people getting involved and sharing messages such as this, as well as others. So I think everybody should be sharing that Project Veritas stuff as it comes out as best as you can. So it'll wake more people up, and it'll prevent people who probably have already participated from going further by getting that booster. You know what I'm saying? Because the booster is probably going to be one level up of something even more dangerous outside of what they already participated with. So by this point, a lot of people made their mind already. They're not taking it anyway. So, yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people will have to succumb to it because a lot of people are up to here in debt.
Yeah.
They can't, they have to do it or else they'll lose their jobs. So what I try to tell people, if possible, is to try to be self-reliant, to live within your means and not be dependent on having to maybe accept this booster, not the medical one, but the fiscal booster.
Let me see. Okay, so I'll just grab it real quick. So I see some people wondering what it is. So it's right here. Let me put it on the screen real quick. And this is the Automatic Boost to Communities Act I was referring to. And so it says, in response to the current situation, the Automatic Boost to Community Act would immediately provide a U.S. debit card preloaded with $2,000 to every person in America. And so it's this particular bill here that was put forth, I think, early this year, last year, but it's on the table. So it's one of those things where when it's needed, they'll say, we already got it here. Let's push this forward along with the central bank digital currency stuff. And this stuff will just get pushed right on through. So but
yes, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett would get it too.
Yeah, they're every American.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, let's get ready to dial back, man. As always, Mario, it's good to connect with you. For those that have enjoyed, hit the thumbs up button. Manico64 on YouTube, do great work every single day. And let's end with some more good news, man. Anything come to mind off the top of your head, Mario, worth leaving the audience with?
Yeah, good news for me. I'm going to CoinEx, which is a big numismatic coins exposition tomorrow in London. So I'm looking forward to it. Sometimes you need to do something outside, to something you like. We can't just be looking at the world while it burns.
Yeah.
It's good to live your life as normally as possible. So I'm looking forward to that. And people should focus on what they like as well and their families and try to do more of that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And same here, man. Just unplugging, going to try to do my best to not connect to the internet as best I can. But other than that, spend time with family, man. We got some good weather and I'm going to try to enjoy it before the snow hits officially. So yeah, unplug and just let my hair down a little bit and enjoy the weekend, man.
I've got a little bit.
You got more than me though.
Yeah.
Oh man. But anyway, man. So it's good to connect as always, everybody. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. See you guys later.
Okay, everyone.
Peace.